Grand Washington Hotel.
Okay, here we go. That should get their attention. Head to the service entrance on the east side of the building.
Over here! What the
Once you're inside, find a way to the atrium.
What's up, agents? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's hanging in there, being as safe as you guys need to be. So we got the new season just hit, and we got a new gear set. We have the Exuro. This is, well, it's an interesting gear set that's going to buff probably the most underused skill in the game, the Incinerator turret. All right, we got a lot to cover. It's going to take a minute. I'm going to try to get through it quick. So do me a favor, you guys learn something new or you guys find this entertaining, smashing that like button be greatly appreciated. Hopefully by the end of this, I will have earned your guys' subscription. Best thing you can do to help my channel is to share this video. If you guys would do anything different or you guys want to see anything in the future, leave a comment down below. All right, let's get into this new area denial build. All right, so the first thing we'll do is talk about the Exuro gear set. So the two-piece will get us 20% burn duration and 15% skill health. The three-piece bonus will add 40% burn damage. And the fourth piece is where the fun begins. It turns our standard Incinerator turret, which is a piece of shit, into the Ortiz Incinerator turret prototype. That turns it into a 360-degree spinning firestorm. We become immune to our own fire, and when the turret is disabled, it explodes. Much like in the Division 1, this exploding turret does not do a whole lot of damage, but will stagger some foes. And it can be used to some efficiency, but yeah. There's also the backpack that comes with the heat stroke talent. This will add plus 25% weapon damage and 25% range. That range may be effective. That 25% weapon damage, we have plenty of other ways to getting it, like say vigilance. I mean, if everybody's burning and they're not shooting at you, then you're going to have that 25% bonus. You don't have to run this pack. And then you have advantage of getting the second minor attribute. So I can't see a time that you'll actually use the backpack, but let's wait. We'll see. Maybe in the future it'll become more effective. And even worse, we got the chest piece, which the chain combustion. Enemies within 2 meters of anybody ignited by the turret also ignite. If they're within 2 meters, they're probably going to be caught in the turret anyway. So I think that's kind of a wasted talent. Now, let's talk about the different specializations that you would use in conjunction with this. There's two that would be fitting. One is the firewall. This would add an additional 20% burn duration. Also give you access to the striker shield. And you get, anytime your armor breaks, all enemies within 5 meters will be set on fire. Now, what I would choose to go with would be the Technician. This gives you the amp for the +1 skill tier, so you could run an armor or weapon core. You get the Faraday field, so as long as you're within the 5 meters of your prototype turret, you will not only be immune to its fire, but you'll be immune to shock and disrupt. You get access to the overclock CPU to add an additional 10% skill damage. You'll get the Link laser pointer, so depending on the weapon you use, you may have access to a pulse. We'll get into where this may be beneficial in a moment. You'll get the dismantling perk. Now notice that dismantling, nothing that will be caught on fire by the turret would benefit from dismantling, but a lot of other things would. And probably most importantly, you would get access to the Artificer Hive. So we'll cover that in a moment as well. Now let's talk about the brand sets and named items you may use in conjunction to this gear set. So there's the Golan gear, which is an armor core, and that will give you plus 10% status effects with the one-piece bonus. The second piece bonus will net 1% armor regen per second. There's the newer Electric gear set, or brand set rather, which is a skill tier brand set, and this will add 10% status effects, and the second piece will give you 20% shock resist. If you're using something like the full area denial build with the shock traps, that may be a benefit as well. Now we have Wyvernware, which is a skill tier. The first piece gives us 10% skill damage. Second piece will net the 10% status effects. And last, there is the Empress International. One piece, first of all, it's skill tier. One piece gives us 10% skill health. Second piece, 10% skill damage. And then, of course, the 3-piece, the coveted 10% skill efficiency. That will add to your skill damage, your status effects, the duration. It'll help the cooldown. It'll give you a little bit of extra repair skill. Of course, we won't be using that in this build. All right, now we're going to mention a bunch of name pieces. There's only one of these I'll really use, which I'll mention last, but I would like to be comprehensive, so let's try to go through. So you have the Sokolov Firm Handshake Gloves. These will net you 15% status effects. Ultimately not worth it. I tried a couple different iterations of this, and it just took away from our damage. There is, and I apologize, I don't pronounce this right, the Lavoisier Electric Backpack, which gets you the perfect galvanized. If you proc the right sort of status effect, in this case it would probably be shock from the shock traps or from the Scorpio if you're using that. You give 50% of your armor's bonus armor to all of your allies within 30 meters of that target for 10 seconds. There's the Empress International Battery Pack Backpack, which comes with a perfectly calculated. If you're in cover and you get a skill kill, it will knock 15% of your cooldown off. And last, there's the Golan Anarchist Cookbook, which comes with the Perfectly Wicked. Applying a status effect will yield you 18% weapon damage for 27 seconds. Now, moving on to the named chest pieces, there's 2 that I might run with. The first one is the Electric Henry, and this will give you the Perfect Companion. So this will add 20% weapon damage when you're within 10 meters of an ally or your skills. And the actual piece that I use in my build, which we'll get to at the end of this, the Caesar's Guard. And this will get you the Perfectly Skilled. So every time you get a skill kill, there's a 30% chance to proc it. And the cool thing is this will remain in your taskbar until you actually deploy your, or not till you deploy, but till your next skill goes on cooldown, in which case it will be automatically reset. Now, as far as the attributes, the primary attribute you want to look for everywhere is status effects. So on all of your Exuro pieces, you're going to have status effects. Secondly, you want to have skill damage. So on your Empress International chest, for both your high-end pieces, you want status effect and skill damage. And then for any reason, if you're not able to get those, if you're still building this up, skill duration would be of benefit. The skill duration from the attributes will affect not only the turret duration itself, but will affect the burn duration. That being said, the mods you want, I'm running with 3 skill duration mods. They will not, and we've covered this many times in the past, they will not increase the burn duration, but it will increase the overall duration that the turret is out, so that still means more damage. All right, now let's talk about the talents you would use. Let's talk about the backpack first. So there's Calculated, the standard version. Kills from cover will net you 10% skill cooldown. There's Tech Support. Getting a skill kill will net you 25% additional skill damage for 25 seconds. We got Shock and Awe. Applying a status effect will give you 20% skill damage, 20% repair skill for 20 seconds. And lastly, Creeping Death. And we talked about the chain combustion passing the ignition on to enemies within 2 meters. Creeping Death will apply any of your status effects to all enemies within 8 meters of the target. It does have a 15-second cooldown, and there's definitely more bang for the buck with Creeping Death versus that chain combustion, but I wouldn't be using either of those in this build. Now let's talk about different chest talents you could use. Now there's Kinetic Momentum. For each skill you have deployed, it'll ramp up a stack up to 15% skill damage, which will net us a total of 30% skill damage, as long as your skills are not on cooldown. There's Spotter. And as we mentioned earlier, if you're running with the Technician and you have a weapon that you can put the Link Laser Pointer on, you can quickly scan the battlefield, pulse targets. This will net you 15% skill damage and weapon damage to any pulse targets. There's the standard version of Skilled, which any skill kill will give you a 25% chance to reset your skill cooldowns. There's Overwatch. If you're running in a group, you may go for this. You stay in cover for 10 seconds, and all of your allies will get 12% skill damage and weapon damage. And lastly, if you just want the big numbers, of course, there's Glass Cannon, which will net you that 1.25% multiplier to all of your damage of any sort at the cost of you taking 50% bonus damage from every source. So it's a liability, and ultimately Glass Cannon I don't think is worth it because it does nothing to help mitigate that 50-second cooldown of the Incinerator turret, which we're about to get into in a moment.
All right.
All right, now let's talk about the weapons. And I'm sure anybody who's subscribed to this channel knows what's coming. Use any weapon that you feel comfortable with. If the weapon is the best weapon, but you can't proc the buff, or you can't get the hits that you need to get, if you can't make the contact, it's worthless. So use your favorite weapon. Now, what do I recommend? Roll Perpetuation on it. Perpetuation is the most bang for the buck for any status effect in the game. It gives you 50% status effect damage and duration. All you got to do is get a headshot. It does have a 20-second cooldown, but here's the cool thing. Much like the name says, Perpetuation, if you proc that headshot and you do not change your weapons, you can walk around in perpetuity with Perpetuation procced, ready to go on your next status effect deployment. Now, the second weapon I would recommend running is either the Capacitor or the Scorpio. The Capacitor, you can build the stacks up to that 60% skill damage. On the other hand, the Scorpio, you could proc that 7 stacks of Septic Shock, and then they will take 20% multiplicative damage from any source. So this could be more beneficial for the team. The Capacitor would be more beneficial for keeping your own damage up, and particularly the damage of the turret. Now, on the offhand, you know, run whatever you want. I got my backup boomstick, but I run with Sledgehammer. That way, if something's caught in the turret, I could toss a grenade out. Boom. 30% bonus damage to armor, 20% reduced movement speed. Means they're going to have a harder time getting out of that turret. Means I have more of a chance of killing them and proccing that skill. Now let's talk about skills. Before talking about the turret itself, let's talk about 3 options that I prefer for the alternate skill. Use whatever you guys want, but for me, there's 3 ways of looking at this. First of all, if we go with the firewall, give us access to that striker shield. When modded up appropriately, that means anything within the cone in front of us and any of our teammates behind us, they will do 13% bonus damage for every enemy that's within the cone in front of us. If the enemies are sitting there burning, they can't move out, again, this could be a big advantage to the team. Now, the other way, if you want to run full area denial, I would run with the shock traps. That means you can shock the guys, get them stuck, again, burning that much longer, making it that much harder for them to move out of the area of effect, and giving you that much more time to proc the Sledgehammer if you want to do that. Now, the way I would recommend running it, unless you're in a team where somebody's using the Artificer Hive, I recommend running the Artificer Hive for yourself. First of all, it'll buff the rest of your team and their skills with that 70% buff. It'll help to reset the cooldown, not reset the cooldowns, it'll help to refresh the duration of skills. And the biggest thing is this helps to keep the damage up of that turret. So it will keep refreshing the turret so it stays around that much longer. And I just find it's a nice buff for the entire team. So again, you can use any skill. You know, you could use the Ortiz prototype turret along with the burn sticky bomb, and I'm sure that would actually be quite fun. I'll probably try that in the future here, but for the main stake of the area denial build, this is the way I run it. All right, agents, this is hilarious. I did the whole video, got to the end, started editing, and realized I talked about everything except for one thing, the Incinerator turret. So, the Incinerator turret, the worst skill in the game up to this point. Now with the 4-piece Exuro becomes the Ortiz Incinerator turret prototype, and that's a game changer. Now, regardless of whether we're running Firewall or the Technician, the duration of the turret is going to be 36 seconds. The cooldown will remain that terrible 50-second cooldown, which we'll get into how to mitigate that in a moment. The mods we're using on the turret are the 5% burn damage mod, the 10% health mod, and the 7.5% skill haste mod. Now, if we're using the Firewall, you're going to expect to see around 53,000 damage as the initial burn, and then 219,000 per tick. The burn duration will be 12.8 seconds, so this is a longer burn duration than with the Technician. However, using the Technician, we're going to see that 53K initial pop up to 55.5K, and more importantly, that burn damage is going to go from 219,000 to 225,000. The duration of the burn will drop down to 11.5 seconds. The thing to consider is because in endgame content, the elite enemies have significantly more resistance, regardless of whether we're using Technician or Firewall, we're only going to be looking at 5 to 6 second burn duration total. So in this circumstance, it's just, in every way, I find it better to run the Technician. The biggest thing about it is the fact that this turret will keep spinning 360 degrees. One thing to note too, if you do turn the turret off, that duration will increase significantly. The duration of the turret barely goes down at all if it's not firing. Also, I will mention that when you add in the Artificer Hive, it bumps up the duration of that turret from 36 seconds to damn near 50 seconds. So it will keep refreshing a little bit of time that the turret's out. So a couple quick little notes, agents, that I wanted to throw into this video after running it solo for a bit. This definitely is not a build to run solo. There's just too many things that could go wrong, from being in an open area, getting flanked, to skilled not going off, to the game. You know, I wish we could all say, yeah, the game functions perfectly all the time, but any of us who've been playing for any amount of time knows it's just not the case. The build is effective, but it is very much a one-trick pony. It has to be used in the right place. I was forced, I tried to use the Seeker Mines, and they worked okay. Got skilled to proc a couple times. Using the drone, it worked, but overall, I would much rather just go with the original build idea, using the Artificer Hive and the turret, running with the group, and just using the build specifically what it's for, area denial. So that being said, let's just get into the build the way that I'm running it. So, for my weapon, I'm running with a P416 with Perpetuation. I will proc that first. My offhand, I'm using the Capacitor. The reason I like the Capacitor is because it comes with the damage to armor and damage to health. On my offhand, I'm using the backup Boomstick with Sledgehammer. For my backpack, and my exotic piece, I am running with the Ninja Bike. Ninja Bike will give us the weapon core, the armor core, and the skill tier, as well as that resourceful talent, which will give us one additional brand or gear set to whatever we're using. So this is how we fill up all the slots that we need. It'll give us that fourth piece of the Exuro. It'll give us either the third piece of the Empress International or that second piece of the Wyvern, depending on how we're rocking with it. That being said, we're going to be running Exuro, 3 pieces. You can either use mask, gloves, holster, or knee pads. All 3 pieces of Exuro are running with status effects. For the chest piece, we got Caesar's Guard with the perfectly skilled. The chest will have skill damage and status effects on it. And the last piece, you can either use a Empress International to gain that skill efficiency, which would be the better bang for the buck, or you can slot in a Wyvern. They're basically the same thing. Skill damage, status effects on there. We're going to be using 3 skill duration mods, and I'm running with the Artificer Hive. Again, I'll note, if I'm in a group and it turns out somebody else is using the Artificer Hive, at that point I'll swap over to the Shock Traps. Lastly, what's the gameplay cycle to maximize our damage with the turret? Well, we want to proc that Perpetuation. We want to deploy the turret. As soon as they start burning, we swap over to our Capacitor or our Scorpio and proc those buffs. Rinse and repeat. The only decision you have to make, do you want to swap back over once the Perpetuation perk cooldown is off, reproc Perpetuation, or do you just want to stay at the 60 stacks of the Capacitor? The difference is so small, I choose to just keep the Capacitor in my hand, and then if it's getting towards the end of the battle, we know we're almost about done, I'll often swap back to my P416 with Perpetuation, try to get a headshot, and then that way I have Perpetuation hopefully going into the next encounter. So that's pretty much it, guys. It's I tried to keep this short. The coolest thing is I finally feel like they took the most underutilized skill in the game, as far as I could tell, and found a way to make it useful. So will this see a lot of gameplay? I've been playing with this for almost a week now, and I haven't really seen anybody else using this In fact, yeah, I don't recall seeing a single person using this build. I've taken it into the countdown, and I'll tell you, it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm going to need to take it into some legendary content, see how good it is there. But it's just fun to have something different than what we've been dealing with before. So do me a favor, guys. Let me know what you think. If you guys learned something new or found this entertaining, smashing that like button would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully by now I've earned your guys' subscription. Best thing you can do to help my channel is to share this video. And do me a favor, if you guys would run this any differently, or you guys want to see anything else in the future, please leave a comment down below. Alright, we're going to let some gameplay roll out. You agents be as safe as you need to be out there, and I will catch you all in the dark zone. Peace out, everybody. Alright, boom, both of them at the same time. What the fuck, dude? Alright, we got some stupid fucking lag here. That's all there is to it. And if we can get Perpetuation proc here, it won't even matter. Because as soon as we go downstairs, as soon as we load, it's going to disappear. Yeah, I would never use this build solo, except to show this off. It's a terrible idea solo. It's probably great for a group, but just shitty by yourself. It's not that the build doesn't work. It's just it's very one-trick pony. So what I'm going to try to do, because I know dudes are going to come out over here, we'll try to set up here, and maybe we can use this effectively up here. There we go. Yeah, we got no recovery. You got to be right up in their face, essentially, to make it work. Skill proc and then immediately went away because our drone died. Perfect. There we go. Oh, the door's burning. Holy shit. It says it's burning. Let's see this. Boom.
Manny, is Odessa on the line?
I'll patch her in.
196 enemies burned. Well, that's something.